everyone! Today I'm bringing you my January reviews. I read 5 books in January, which I'm quite happy with because 3 of the books were ones that I'd had on my shelf for quite a while, so I was happy to get those off my TBR pile. So the first book I read is Sherlock Lennox's Female Quixote, which is a satirical work, 18th century novel. It is an influence for Jane Austen. You can really see this when you read Northanger Abbey, where the influence came of, kind of satirizing those romance novels. This book is about Arabella, who lives in the country with her father. She's quite wealthy, she's quite beautiful, and her mother died when she was quite young, so she spent her time reading romances. And this has kind of addled her brains in a way, or her perception of society, because she believes that the way people act in these romances with brutality and being raped and ravished and all these great heroines and people falling in love with a look is how society actually works. So it's really interesting when the plot introduces her cousin, who her father intends for her to marry, and it basically deals with how they're trying to get her to understand that the books she reads do not actually reflect society. I really enjoyed this. I bet I read this with a couple other booktubers. A lot of our discussion centered around some of the differences between this and Don Quixote. This is basically what Don Quixote would be like if he was a woman. And I think that's really fascinating. I think comparing and contrasting these two works really interesting. I was actually supposed to read this for a class that I ended up dropping, so I never finished this. I think I dropped it around the same time that we were reading it. So I'm glad to finally have gotten this off my TBR. I think I gave it about 3 stars. The first half of the novel is a bit slow. The second half definitely saves it. If it had all been like the second half, I definitely would have given it probably a 4 or 5 star rating. So the next book I read is one of my booktube recommends from Jen V. Campbell. I'm sure you all know who Jen is. And that is Our Endless Numbered Days by Claire Fuller. This is definitely outside of my wheelhouse. This is the story of Peggy, and when she's 8, her father takes her to go live in a cabin in the woods, in Germany, I believe. And one day he tells her that the world has ended and they're the only 2 people left. And it's this really interesting psychological, kind of almost post-apocalyptic, but not actually post-apocalyptic, 2 people living off the land by their own means kind of book. So definitely out of the ordinary for something that I read. Unfortunately, I found that the plot dragged a lot. I know a lot of people really love this book, so apologies. I only gave it 2 stars. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything spectacular. But I am glad for the opportunity to read something outside of my classic wheelhouse. So the next one is one that I've had sitting on my shelf for, I want to say, close to 5 years, and that is Anne Radcliffe's The Mysteries of Udolpho. I read this with Tanya over at List Obsessed Reader and Jean over at Jean's Bookish Thoughts. And we read this because, as I mentioned before, in Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey, which is kind of like a satire of these types of books, the romances, this book is mentioned. This is the book that Catherine Morland reads in it. And as I just reread The Mysteries of Udolpho, I really wanted to read this. So we decided to read this. This was a struggle for me. I enjoyed it. It was definitely enjoyable. It's definitely kind of a light, fluffy read, but it does drag. It's got weird plot points. The romance is so over the top, but it was really interesting reading this fairly close to the Female Quixote, because you could really see, this is the type of story that Arabella would have read. So it was really interesting. I think I gave it 2 or 3 stars. It's interesting if you want to, if you've read The Female Quixote or you've read Northanger Abbey and you kind of want to see what those romances are like. I'm curious to read more Radcliffe. I find her fascinating. I have, I think it's The Romance of the Forest on my shelf to read as well, and hopefully it won't take me 5 years to get to. Another one that I read, which, quick correction, I did post a full review, so I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I said that this was published by Picador. It is not published by Picador. I was just dumb and didn't read the cover. It is published by Profile, so huge apologies to Profile for calling them Picador throughout the entire review. This is a collection of poetry and some critical essays on Angela Carter's early poetry, which she ended up giving up doing I found this really interesting, but I just posted a full review, so you can go check that out if you want to hear about that. And the last book I read with Ange Beyond the Pages 19 and Yamini over at The Skeptical Reader, and that is The Return of the Native by Thomas Hardy. I've had this on my shelf for ages because I picked it up. It was a used and overstock book, and it was one of the Penguin English Library, so I just grabbed it. It was like $6. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get to this eventually. I absolutely love this book. I'm just gonna go right into it. I loved this book. The main character, Eustacia, is she's probably one of my favorite Hardy heroines. Eustacia Vi, you have a special place in my heart. Like a lot of Hardy's novels, this is really depressing, but it's absolutely fantastic. It has some, like, Hardy always picks the best names for his characters. The main character's name is Eustacia Vi. There's another girl in it called Thomasin Yeobright, her brother Clem Yeobright, Damon Wildeve, like, great character names. But this basically tells the story of Eustacia, and she lives in Egdon Heath, which is a part of his fictional Wessex County. And it's really interesting. It looks at, like, the way people live and how some people are happy with their station in life and how some people aren't and want to move on, and how there are miscommunications with that. I'm trying to give a quick plot synopsis without giving too much away. I really enjoyed this. This is probably, I think it might, on like reflection, it was just shy of 5 stars. There was something a little bit missing, but I think it might be my favorite Hardy that I've read so far. So if you haven't checked this one out, definitely do. Yamini, Ange, and I are reading quite a few Hardys this year. We've got quite a few planned. This month we're reading The Woodlanders, next month we're reading Jude the Obscure, so we're kind of working our way through his bibliography. So those are the books that I read in January. Let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in any of those books. As always, links will be in the description, and let me know what you guys read in January, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye!